Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Wow. That was loud. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Townsend with them, and then I did all this stuff to the little planes with them. And then, went in the grant, and then they have grant. I can't hold it. And we took on the, okay, remember first took the west side on the way back. And then I basically did a lot of going back and forth.
All right. It is 7:01. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Thanks everyone for coming out tonight. Really appreciate everyone showing up. So agenda for tonight, we've got a few new people here, so we'll just go through some brief introductions again. Just name, where you're from, maybe what you do. And then we'll go through a little update on outreach, home assessments, what we've been working on so far. Have a nice little Q&A session with Byron Bonney to find out some more about the previous community wildfire protection plan that was created for the Bitterroot. And then we'll start to get into our own questions of how we want to organize as the CWPP Community Wildfire Protection Plan Update Committee. And then just kind of recap and wrap things up at the end there. Yeah. So some objectives for tonight, just first learning about the history of the Bitterroot Community Wildfire Protection Plan. Second, hopefully we will solidify who's going to be in the update committee. We are missing a few volunteers that have signed up already, so we'll see where we get on that one. Decide how to move forward with the Community Wildfire Protection Plan Update Committee. If we want to add a meeting or just keep things in this meeting. Identify who needs to be on the core team and who's missing. And then finally, reaching out to commissioners, how, who, when, why do we want to do that? Okay. Oh my gosh, I even forgot my own agenda. Whoops. So I got going there. All right, I am Bridget. And I am the Ravalli County Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator for the DNRC. It's a mouthful.
I'm Anna Bates, and I work on the Bitterroot National Forest as a fire prevention specialist.
Dean is the last name. Joe and Carol. We live in Florence.
Thank you.
I'm Tim Hancock, I guess retired Forest Service, and Byron hired me the other day to open gates for him and carry his lunch and stuff like that. So,
You haven't passed carrying the lunch yet.
he had to get lunch if I carried it. So yeah, just started working with Byron here just the other day, working with the Bitterroot.
Perfect.
RC&D.
RC&D, you gotta make sure I got the numbers right.
They won't give you a paycheck if you don't.
This doesn't-
You gotta get it right.
What was the name again?
Tim Hancock.
Okay.
I'm Byron Bonney, work for Bitterroot RC&D, retired Forest Service.
program manager for the grant program that we have to help landowners reduce their fuels and fire risk.
I'm Marlene Gall, I'm a retired Forest Service again, and I'm a member of Victor Fire.
Mike Kent, currently a real estate agent and one of the local directors on our local realtor board. Retired after 34 years of emergency services, started out volunteer actually with this department back many years ago. And been on multiple fire departments, search and rescue, ambulance, law enforcement. But one of the things property owner rights and trying to get property owners to listen as far as the mitigation. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to do through our local board and getting education out there.
Judy Anderson, private landowner up Canyon Creek Road.
Ken Brewer, Florence Fire, and also a retired Forest Service, but he's knew all these guys back when. And so I'm representing Florence Fire on this, and then WUI task force that we had going before has rolled into this.
Paul from Victor Fire. John McKenna, Victor Fire.
I am Krista Mortensen. I'm the Community Preparedness and Fire Prevention Specialist for the DNRC's Southwestern Land Office, which includes all of Ravalli County. So we DNRC people have long titles.
We have 3 people online, so I'll go to Rich.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Donovan. I'm a resident here of the Bitterroot, and I work for the University of California. Sorry, and I work from home for University of California, Irvine, and I have a lot of interest in what's going on with fire in the root for lots of reasons, not the least of which I think that there's some pretty unique opportunities for economic development with respect to managing forest fuels and increasing the value of the land and in general here in the Bitterroot.
Thank you. Let's see, that's Skip.
I'm Skip Kowalski. I'm also a retired Forest Service, but a wildlife biologist. Worked in the regional office for a good number of years. I'm with the Bitterroot Forest Collaborative, which is a group that makes recommendations to the Forest Service on various projects. And I'm here just to kind of catch up and observe and provide feedback to the collaborative about what you folks are working on.
Thanks for joining us. And then let's see, we've got Zay.
Zay Hudson, Ravalli County Sheriff's Office in 911.
Thanks, Zay.
Awesome. Thank you everyone again for coming tonight. No, you're good. So just a little outreach update. This past month, September, just a little recap again. We were at the Ravalli County Fair. We had 10 home assessment signups. Judy was able to get 7 of those scheduled, and I've got 7 of them completed now. This was one pair that signed up at the fair, so we got them here now too. Very exciting. Then October, we were just at Apple Days on Saturday. We did get 4 signups there. So not as many as the fair, but I think we had at least 50 people stop by the table, probably closer to 70. What did you think about Saturday, Judy?
I thought we had a lot of people, and although there were some people that were reticent to put their name on a slip of paper at our table to say they wanted a home assessment, I got the impression there were at least 3 more that said they would sign up online.
I do have 4 more assessments scheduled for next week as well. So I'm getting a fair amount of assessments, still slowly but surely. We got more Fire in the Root Council pamphlets. So if anyone wants to take some to pass out where you think it would be best, feel free to grab some. So just trying to keep getting our name out there, making sure people know who we are. Judy, anything else that you could think of for outreach?
We haven't heard back yet from the Bitterroot Builders Association about when we can meet with them. They have a monthly breakfast meeting where the builders show up. And I had hoped to present an idea to them about considering a category for judging the homes and have a Firewise category.
Awesome.
So we'll see if they're open to that.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that would be awesome. And hopefully we've also been chatting about Firewise Gardening because there's the tour.
Yes, I've been asked by the Secret Garden Tour. I don't know if you all know about that, but it's an annual event. It's a charity. They sell tickets and they have usually about 6 homes that people get a little map and they go to the home and snoop around in people's gardens. And I've been invited to be on the tour, but they have now put me off until 2023 because they already had others aligned ahead of me. And I told them I would only do it if I could be billed as a Firewise landscape. And I'm going to have my little brochures so that people can ask questions and maybe sign up some people for assessments.
Awesome. Thank you. Yep. So again, trying to tap into the builders, landscapers, just pushing Firewise.
Any other large events that have come up between now and the last meeting at all that maybe we should be present at?
None that I know of.
Anyone else think of any events coming up?
We do have, no, but we do have a pamphlet we send to every landowner that I think the title is Fire in Your Landscape. And it has a list of all the fire resistant plants, trees, you name it, shrubs that people can go to that and purchase those and plant them in their flower beds and get rid of all the chips.
Yeah. Oh, and that reminds me, there was a couple at the fair that were interested in doing an assessment, but they're snowbirds and they want to do it in the spring. But I visited with her quite a bit and invited her to come to my house because she was asking me about landscape ideas. I said, I'm not a landscaper, but I have some ideas. So they came and looked around. I said, bring your notebook. And so she was writing down all these notes about which plants. So I'm going to give her your things. We're invited to their home for dinner tomorrow. So that's a real connection.
Very nice.
Yeah, if you could get me their address, I can send them a couple things.
Okay.
And just an FYI, since we're talking about landscaping, there is in the works a Firewise Garden at the U of M. That's a great collaborative project that the DNRC has helped fund, and the Missoula County and MCFPA and the U of M has a bunch of students that are creating a wonderful example of a Firewise garden. And that is something that easily could be transported down here, Bitterroot College, something like that could be something we could sponsor or facilitate collaboration towards doing in the future, especially as we get people that are interested, because it is valuable for them to see what it looks like and what plants truly do well, you know, because a lot of times they bill it as deer resistant or fire resistant, but the locals know, you know, in a hard, like right now, there's no such thing as deer resistant.
Right, they're eating
They're
everything.
hungry and they're eating everything, so, but you know, it's just a neat thing to have, and utilizing college students is a great learning thing too. So not for right now, but definitely a project in the future, especially as we learn from them on what to do or what not to do.
Where is it on the
It is, they have a plot, and I want to say it's close to the Mount Sentinel parking area. It's like across from there.
I think it's by the forestry building.
Is it? Okay.
It's
there-
further down from the parking lot because they were talking about.
But it's on the campus.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
on the
yes,
campus.
yes.
And I,
Is it on Forest Service lot?
yeah, I think the Forest Service donated the land, like there was a little plot of.
Oh, where the
Right on
Rocky Mountain
campus, behind
Station.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that might be where it is.
Yeah.
It's like, right now,
Main gym.
it's boardwalks.
Yeah, right
Like
by
all
the-
you
yeah,
can
where
see
the
is
main gym
boardwalks.
is.
There's nothing,
Main
they've planted items, but nothing's really come up, so it isn't, it's not to fruition yet, but this spring, it should be at least visible enough to have some growth, but in a couple of years, it'll be really neat. But yeah,
I think they did something like that around the fire lab also on a couple sides of the fire
yeah,
lab.
that would be really good if they do. But but that's a little more out of the way,
It is,
so yeah,
It
the
is.
U of M.
but on the other hand, it's easier to park.
Yeah.
So-
You don't have to reach. Yeah.
I don't know, with the lack of students, they probably find parking spot.
Yeah.
They're pretty easy.
Yeah, not bad in the summer.
Yeah, for Christmas break.
Right. So getting back to the community wildfire protection plan, I just wanted to take a moment to make sure that we're all on the same page of exactly what a community wildfire protection plan is. So I'm going to say this a million times now, just so that everybody knows. A community wildfire protection plan is a plan developed in the collaborative framework established by the Wildfire Leadership Council and agreed to by state, tribal, and local government, local fire department, other stakeholders, and federal land management agencies managing land in the vicinity of the planning area. A community wildfire protection plan identifies and prioritizes areas for hazardous fuel reduction treatments and recommends the types and methods of treatment on federal and non-federal land that will protect one or more at-risk communities and essential infrastructure, and recommends measures to reduce structural ignitability throughout the at-risk community. A community wildfire protection plan may address issues such as wildfire response, hazard mitigation, community preparedness, or structure protection, or all of the above. And that is from the National Wildfire Coordinating Group. So why does our community need a community wildfire protection plan? Community wildfire protection plans are the primary mechanism that communities use to identify local priorities for wildfire risk reduction and resilience. These plans serve as the glue that brings multiple sources of information, activities, and interests into one document. Community wildfire protection plans have many economic, social, and environmental benefits, including reducing the direct and indirect social, economic, and environmental costs of wildfire, coordinating wildfire risk reduction with other community values and priorities, influencing where federal agencies prioritize these fuel treatments, bringing together diverse interests to tackle local wildfire challenges and opportunities, identifying potential resources for funding for mitigation activities. Been talking a lot about that. And increasing community awareness and engagement in risk reduction. Also been a big piece of what we've been talking about too. So again, just wanting to really make sure everyone knows what the purpose of the community wildfire protection plan is. And this was just a brief history, very, very brief history that I gave last meeting. And now we have Byron here, so we're gonna ask him some questions, get some more details as to how the first Bitterroot Community Wildfire Protection Plan was developed. So we'll start off.
Okay.
So first, who initiated the first Bitterroot Wildfire Community Protection Plan and why?
Before we get into CWPP, there was I think it was called the Bitterroot Fire Plan prior to 2000. And, that was initiated by, I believe, multiple agencies. But primarily, I think the RC&D again took the lead on coordinating that plan. And that was prior to the invention of the CWPP.
Okay.
Okay. So back in the early 2000s, I think 2002, we got some funding, and that funding came from DNRC. In fact, all of the updates and everything, the funding has come from DNRC, but it originates through Congress to the Forest Service, state and private forestry, and then the state and private forestry. We go through the rigmarole of applying for grants, and then the 11 Western states get together, and they basically decide who gets, by state, who gets the grant funding. And so we apply to that every year. We applied way back when and got the funding. So we initiated that first CWPP. And the reason we did it is because, number one, because of the fires of 2000 in the Bitterroot. We knew that Bitterroot had a large fire history. And so we wanted to make sure that we brought all the interests together to put this CWPP together to address those issues that needed to be addressed in order to protect lives and property and other values of risk. That's why we did it. And that remains why we do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome. Perfect. So in that process, who was involved and how did you organize? So we have the list of signers that approved the CWPP. Were all those individuals involved throughout the whole process? Did you have a small core committee and then referred to the commissioners as needed for approval, or how did that kind of organization work for you guys?
So when we got the funding for the current CWPP, basically we put together a small group, and it's part of that WUI task force that we had prior to this group. So we put that group together, and they helped think things out in terms of what the CWPP should include. We did action items within the CWPP and what are all the tasks needed to accomplish that action item and that objective. So that's how we designed it at that time. So in terms of who was involved, it was basically the Forest Service, the DNRC, the fire departments. But the fire departments back in, when we did all those updates you saw on the screen, they weren't as involved as they were in 2009. 2009 was a much more organized effort. We actually hired fire specialists on board because we got funding through one of our grants to complete a CWPP. So we hired a fire specialist and we hired a GIS specialist. And then I was basically the, I guess, team leader. So there's three of us that were tasked with updating and going forward with the new CWPP in 2009. Those involved in that process, the All Valley Fire Council, all 13, I think 13 fire districts, right? All 13 fire districts in the valley were involved. The Forest Service, the DNRC, NRCS was a little involved, not as much as the rest of them. And we involved the sheriff and at that time, the Department of Environmental DES. okay?
Emergency
Yeah,
services,
emergency
before it
services.
went into the fire, or
Yeah.
into the sheriff's office.
Yeah, so the sheriff was involved somewhat because of evacuation issues. And then we coordinated with county commissioners throughout the process. So I met with them 2 or 3 times during the process just to show them what was going on. The other thing that happened was I personally met with several landowners that took issue with the process and issue with certain things that we were involved with in terms of getting completed, of which one was the WUI Map. So I met personally with several landowners in regards to that, and explained to them why we needed the WUI and why we needed to address it in the plan. We went to several All Valley Fire Council meetings during this time period. It took probably, I'm guessing, 6 months maybe to do it. Yeah, but as part of that process, as we went through the WUI mapping exercise, fire specialists worked with the GIS specialists to establish some lines within the Bitterroot in each fire district. And then what happened is we sent those maps to each fire district and let them look at them and let them determine where those lines should be. And so they gave us feedback and they scribbled on all these maps. They're plotter size maps, big maps. They scribbled all over them. And we met Larry Russell was the person that went out and met with each fire district. And he took his maps and he sat down with each one of them and went through what they wanted. And then that's what we came up with for lines to put on the map. So we did all that coordination. And DES came in and looked at it and gave it the thumbs up. And then we went forward with that. So I guess that probably answers most of your questions in regards to all this.
So far. How long were you meeting for? For the original one, like to get a first
The
draft?
original one was basically just me. And I coordinated with those, all those agencies and folks.
Yep.
Just to put that together.
Okay.
And that probably took about 6 months.
Okay.
So, but over time, what happened in the original, from the original to the 2009 one, the CWPP kind of evolved over that time period. So we knew we needed to be more complete in terms of getting more people involved. So that's what the change was between the first one and the last.
Okay. Awesome. What do you feel were some of the successes of the first few community wildfire protection
I
plans?
think just the coordination and getting to meet with folks and be able to explain to them what it was all about, why we needed it. That was a good success. It was very well accepted at that time, all the way from 2002 up to the 2006.
Okay.
2009 one was well accepted, except for the map. So, but they did not want to adopt the 2009 because of the map, so they reverted back to the 2006 plan that you have over here.
Okay. And if you could do anything different this time around, what would you change?
I think I would do more public meetings
Okay,
rather than just meeting individually with those folks. We thought it was kind of a no-brainer at the time that everybody wants to be protected. And there really isn't any issue involved. And maybe we were a little naive about that. We must have been. Because we did get a lot of pushback. So I guess I think more public meetings would be more beneficial to the process, just to bring people along.
yeah,
And maybe do some ads or something in the newspaper so people could see the progress that's being made and the objectives that are being developed and that sort of thing. So that it brings people along a lot better.
that is a great recommendation.
That's probably what I'd do differently this time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that is gonna be critical. As we move forward, hopefully with this update, is there anything that you hope to see us accomplish as a group with the update? Yeah, what would you like to see? Yeah,
Well, I'd like to see the state of Montana Fourth Action Plan brought into it. That's a really good document that I think addresses a lot of the issues that need to be talked about and resolved. I think that's a great document to begin with. And I think maybe a few more organizations out there that we could bring in. I mentioned NRCS is one of them that helped us originally, but not a whole lot. So I think they need to be brought in more.
What does NRCS stand for?
Natural Resources Conservation Service.
Formerly the Soil
Yeah,
Conservation
the old
Service.
Soil Conservation Service. So I guess that's what needs to be accomplished, I think. Oh, the other thing that's kind of interesting is, we coordinated with the Forest Service a lot. Each of the ranger districts, I forgot to tell you, we visited each ranger district, and just like Larry did with the fire department districts. And but we didn't really address federal land. We addressed private land. And so I noticed in your first little slide up there, what is a CWPP? And you've got that straight out of the I guess, state document.
yeah.
That addresses CWPP. It stated federal and non-federal lands. So that's going to be a big change if we do that. Because there's and of course there's also state land, and there's also so that there's NRCS and national forests. So that's going to be a big change this time. So there has to be a Forest Service presence, more of a presence on the development of this. They attend most of our meetings, but they didn't really dig in and do a whole lot with us in those updates. But this time, if we're to address federal and non-federal land, they're going to have to. So I think it's critical that we join everyone together to get this plan out. and address all the fire problems, not just one problem. Not really. No.
Does anyone else have questions here that bring up anything for anybody? Okay,
I guess
Yeah.
I have a question for Byron.
Yeah.
And it has to do with the current CWPP and how much of that is still applicable, is still valid today? Are we talking about a complete redo, or is it primarily an update to reflect what's happened in the last 15 years? And as you alluded to, more involvement on the federal land management side.
Yeah, I think there are still some of the same objectives that need to be met. And that's what needs to happen, is to take that plan and to look at it along with the forest action plan from the state and marry the two together to see, okay, what are the commonalities in those two plans? And what is still valid and what isn't? And that has to be an exercise by this committee. And then I think the format of a CWPP is much different now than when we did it. So I think there's a lot of great examples out there of good solid formats. And I think Missoula County has a good one.
Yeah.
So, getting some copies of those and looking through them and seeing how they organized their information for people. And then start thinking about marrying some of those things together. But I think there are some things in the old one that can be brought forward.
What about the matter of the individual home risk assessment? What kind of a priority did that have in the current CWPP?
I don't think it had much on home assessment.
And what's your vision of its importance and place in this current one?
I think it's very important.
I think it's
very important. I think it needs to be one of the right up front items. Objection.
Do we go back and check on those?
Yep.
At some time?
Yeah.
They've done the work.
So that's an important part
Yeah.
of a CWPP, but it's often forgotten. So that's a really good thing to remember, is that it should be a living document. And there should be accountability in it and a timeline and a who is doing what. So that you can look back and say, was this done? Check. Was this done? No. Okay, we need to do this, because it's not enforceable. There isn't a CWPP police out there.
Yeah.
So the only way really to bring people to task is to have that accountability in black and white. And so making sure that you have that in a document is a way to help that, and having an entity that's watching over and also utilizing it as a guiding tool keeps it alive and make sure that those things are being done.
Yeah.
I have a question. It may not be appropriate to ask and answer, but it's driving me crazy. We keep talking about the WUI map was the problem. Can you summarize what the problem was with the WUI
Yeah.
map?
Property rights, insurance rates. Those are the two biggest items. You can't tell me what to do and how to do anything on my property. And if you do this, where's this map gonna go? It's gonna go to the insurance company. Oh, they're gonna see I'm in the WUI. And they're gonna see I'm high risk. My rate's gonna go way up. Or I'm gonna be dropped.
But
So
the
those
insurance
are the two
companies,
big issues.
but the insurance companies, they may be out ahead of us with respect to assessing their coverage of properties.
They already
They already
know.
know. They already
Yeah.
know.
They already know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of a false argument these days.
Yeah, when you
I
get
mean,
a
you still have the property rights. This is my land, nobody's gonna tell me what to do with it. That's, we have to recognize it and deal with that, but that's a reality.
right, but that's a different argument.
Right, yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, when the insurance company sends you a letter about essentially WUI, they don't ever call it that,
No,
but they send you a letter about additional services that they can offer because of where your house is. They know where we live
right.
and that's their business. So,
And just as a sidelight, when we do a fuel job on a piece of private property, they usually get a closeout letter that says they've met the Firewise standard in terms of fire risk and that sort of thing. So that helps somewhat, but if they show that to insurance company, but the problem is insurance companies, when they assess a piece of property, they don't have the expertise to really assess. In fact, some of them look at Google Earth and go, oh, no.
Well, and they assess differently. They assess to replacement value,
Yeah,
or, it's a different valuation. And so, but that's why it's awesome that Brandon's been involved with this, because he'll provide some really good insight and really give us the true story of what they do look at and how they can work with us better, so that it's insurance and fire professionals working together, maybe assessing the same, maybe using the same data and moving together in a better direction.
And on Saturday, at the Apple Days, there were there was a couple, they were both insurance people. One, they live in Stevie. We invited him tonight. I was hoping they'd at least be on Zoom, but I guess they're not. But they're very interested in what we're doing and probably will join the council.
That would be awesome. I did give a presentation to Paine West Insurance a couple months ago now, but they wanted to see what our home assessment was like, so that they could hopefully either integrate it into their assessment or just, again, figuring out how we can all work together on these to accurately assess these homes. Because like one of the major ones is your distance from a fire department, which out here, and I think it's like a 5-mile radius. It's like it already marks you to like a T5 or something like that.
it's surface miles of road actually, but
Okay.
yeah, but yes.
Yeah, so out here, that already puts a lot of people outside of that area. So, yeah, it's a work in progress, but hopefully that'll come to fruition here in the near future.
You mentioned Brandon,
Uh-huh.
see from Paine West.
Paine West, yes.
He ought to have a vested interest. His parents lost their ranch and their
Oh.
home,
Okay.
1990, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing to add as an example of things that can be done using like groups similar to ours and the insurances. In Boulder, there's a program called Wildfire Partners, and the county has teamed up with local insurance agencies, actually big insurance companies, and they have a certification program. So the agency does the home assessments, and it's a certification process. So the individual, when they request the home assessment, it's done, they commit to doing the recommendations. And when they do the recommendations, they call the agency, they come back, they certify that those are done, and they receive a certification, which then guarantees, I say that in quotes, but it's intentionally, or the intention is that they are then protected from losing their policy as long as they maintain that certification. And they have contracts with all the major insurance companies. And so like, that's an example of how we could work together and kind of scratch each other's back for the benefit of reducing wildfire risk. You know, you get people to actually do the work, because honestly, that's the hardest thing. It's doing the home assessments is incredibly important. It's that first step, but you also have to get the work done or it was for nothing. So, you know, those are possibilities. I know Missoula County has been looking into something like that. So it's also talking to our neighbors, because making it a much bigger project would be really great. You know, it would make it a nice seamless thing so that you go up to Lolo, it's the same it's the same type of program. But yeah, there's definitely ways of working together, and that's the type of thing that also can be put in as an objective in the CWPP if it meets a need that we see out there, which is up.
It'd be really nice if sometime in the future, it wouldn't change quickly, but it would be nice if some of the fuel treatments and some of the other things could be reflected in the ISO ratings for the fire districts. I mean, it's easy to add a water source. It's not so easy to add an extra station to get more people within 5 road miles.
Right.
There's some things that you can do that are pretty easy to tweak that affect your ISO rating. But it'd be really nice if there were some hazardous fuel reduction components in there. And perhaps even some home inspection and follow-up components. That'd be really valuable in the long run. It wouldn't change quickly because it's a big thing, you know. It's a lot of bureaucracy there, but it's not reflected at all now. It's the same thing for Washington DC as it is for Stevensville.
The first step in that would be each district would need a map of where all those fuel treatments are.
Right.
And we can provide them.
Right.
On price.
Well, and the agencies can provide it for. It's not that it can't be done, but getting the information to affect the ISO rating, it has to be a component of the ISO scoring process. And right now, that isn't even part of a discussion. It should be in the West at least. You know, maybe everything west of the 100th meridian uses a different ISO process than east of the 100th meridian. But perhaps that's not as relevant as it used to be.
Who has the authority to change those ratings?
You know, that's a really good question. You know, I'm sure there's some governing body there, but I don't know how it works.
Probably those insurance underwriters that live in caves and we never see them.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened last couple of years in California. People, it should be, you'd think it would be easy to get people to pay attention to what's going on.
For a couple of months, you have everybody's attention, but then it's gone. You know,
And when you get their attention, it's too late.
Yeah.
The fire services are on top of you.
right,
Yeah, we get a lot of phone calls during fire season.
right.
It's like, call me back this fall. You can't do anything right now. Sorry.
Any final questions? All right, we'll move forward. So just a few questions we hope to answer for tonight. Solidifying who's on the main committee, meeting times, who needs to be on the core team, who's missing, and then making a plan for reaching out to the commissioners. So I believe these are all the individuals who have volunteered over the time. If I'm incorrect, please feel free to correct me. So pretty decent sized group so far. One thing to know, for example, we do have 3 people from Victor who have volunteered, which is amazing, and we appreciate you all. But how do we gotta figure out how we make it more, get other departments involved. Yes,
Well, I'll be on there for Florence Fire.
okay, perfect. So we got Florence now.
I thought I was on there, but I
Did I have
apparently
you?
not.
Okay, good, thank you. I think I put you down on the funding one too, just,
I said I don't wanna,
you don't wanna
I
research.
don't wanna look for
Yes,
funding,
yes.
but I'll help.
Once we figure it out,
Review.
yes, I appreciate that. I got you. Did not forget that.
Yeah, that's a different list.
Yes. Okay, so I will add you to that for Florence. Yes.
Question, I'm new to the area, so I don't recognize all the names,
Mhm.
but is there a wildland fire suppression specialist in there at all?
There will be. Mark Wilson or Matt Young with the Bitterroot National Forest have been
Yeah.
really active with the group, but it's still fire season. And Anna is the fire prevention specialist for the Bitterroot. So she really serves as the main voice, especially when they can't be here. But yeah, Anna, I shouldn't speak for you, but.
Now, are you talking like someone for the fire departments or agency?
Well, I was, I'm thinking because fire doesn't recognize the boundaries
Right.
when it does come. But somebody with a lot of experience with incident command teams and just knowing how that process works can be, I think, would be totally invaluable.
Right, yeah, if there's someone from the forest, I'm picturing the district rangers to Matt Anderson, who's the forest suit, to Matt Young, who's the field special, well, not anymore, deputy,
AFMO, yeah.
forest management at a higher level than what I will be a part of it. But as far as interagency, mitigation specialist, we don't have anyone here in the valley that's associated with the fire districts.
So in Ravalli County, the direct fire suppression authority is provided by the Forest Service on non-county lands. And then, county lands that would be supported by the state, but it is the Forest Service actually has the primary suppression on
Sure.
on all state and federal lands here, other than private and county.
So I guess what I was, maybe to clarify what I was saying, I think that somebody that has been active or is active with these incident command teams that are in the northern
Yeah.
Rockies, that, you're talking somebody that maybe has operations section chief
Yeah.
responsibility,
Qualifications.
somebody like that can really look at something and go, and this is, most of us can make an assessment, this is a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But what happens when that disaster happens, and sometimes those people can really have some insight on
Yep.
what can cause things to go south or in a hurry.
A very good point.
Or even a fire behavior
Yeah.
analyst, like Warren.
Yeah.
He'd be
Yeah.
a great one. And he can identify a lot of things that most people wouldn't know about. In terms of fire behavior and the risks involved.
And he's the fire management officer for the Stevensville Ranger Station. So those folks for each district at that level will be pulled in.
I think that'd be, I just
Yeah.
didn't see anything on the list.
Yeah, and so I think we'll have to figure this all out too, because there's gonna be, this committee is gonna be kind of the core drivers of it,
Yeah.
that are with it from the start to the end. And then we're gonna involve all the other agencies, partners, and organizations that we need to when we need to. ideally, we would love to have everyone involved at every single point of the way. But getting people to be a part of everything is, a little difficult at times. So really, this core team will then kind of tap into those groups as we need to. So just making sure we have a group at least here. So
yeah, so this is the driving team. So this is like that core team.
we're gonna make sure
And then, yeah.
it happens, not let it
So
go.
I am not volunteering.
Okay.
Will not do it. Who, have you identified a team leader for the group?
Not yet.
Okay. So I think there needs to be a team leader
Okay.
that brings people together.
First,
A leader that can understand the process and be very good in terms of dealing with a big diversity of people.
mhm. So where would the contractor come? Would you want? Still just need a team leader to organize?
Contractor really can't be a team leader.
Yes, okay,
And an agency should not be a team lead either, especially where, and for some of you who are new, might not know the background to this. There is funding, like this isn't a free process. It can actually be quite expensive, and there is funding through the state that will be available for counties to do CWPPs. There will probably be stipulations. One of those stipulations might be, or will likely be, that they will need to use a contractor. This is not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing, because these are people who have done this a lot and they are up to date on the newest formats and technology for utilizing this. And so, but they don't take over the process. You still need to have a core team and a guiding team to work with them. But also as part of this funding is showing that it's locally driven and that there is local buy-in. And so having a state or federal individual leading the process does not represent that local buy-in. So that will actually hurt us if we were to do that. So we do need a team lead. We do need somebody to be the point. But it should not be state or federal to clarify that.
so,
Yeah,
yes,
or even just keep like, back on the other one. For the main core, we do need generally somebody from local county government or agencies needs to be there. We have Eric with emergency management. Is there another?
You should ask Scott.
Yeah.
He's
He's the chair of the All Valley.
Yeah, so he said he would be on it, so I think.
yeah.
And that maybe.
I would
put his-
volunteer him, but I better.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Gotta
thinking
work with
too.
him.
Yeah. But I would put his representation as
All
the
Valley,
All Valley.
yeah.
All Valley,
Yeah,
yeah.
chair
point.
for that. So that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Is there anybody else that needs to be on this core team that we need to reach out to?
Yeah, I will also, these are all the people that were involved in the original community wildfire protection plan.
Mhm.
Well, these are the signers, right?
Signers, yeah.
Signers.
So if they sign, were they involved?
Well, they're.
They were
No,
involved,
no.
yeah.
Because like the commissioners were just apprised of, they weren't involved in the driving of it, but they were apprised of it and supported it. So it's like, we need to know, like, the committee. Who's on the driving? Who's missing from the driving before we move back to the bigger one?
Your
Right.
DES coordinator, Jerry Kruger, taking
Yeah.
them on
Yes.
the DOE, yeah.
Yes.
So you want to go back to this one?
Yeah, I was just meaning that for that one, for the committee.
Still a
Who needs
little
to-
light on county government.
Yeah,
So who from the county government, because that would be
Well,
the, other than the.
somebody from the
commissioners.
sheriff's office, perhaps, because
Okay.
they've been here.
Yep.
Your planning, somebody from planning is working.
That would
Planning
be,
is
that would be
really good.
really smart
yes.
to diversify and get somebody from the planning office. Because having Eric and somebody from the sheriff's office is doubling down,
Right, yeah.
so.
So which we did have Terry Nelson from planning office come to our last meeting, I think
Oh.
one before,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
yeah, so.
Maybe reaching out.
Conversation. with
Yeah,
him
yeah.
about Trying to commit.
Representation from other fire districts, we have Hamilton, Victor, and Florence, but. I mean, I would
No.
recommend one from each.
Nobody from Steve Ryan.
Well, in the southern end.
Sula.
Or do we want
I had
Old
people
Valley
from
to
Sula
represent?
here.
That's what I was just gonna add, is that where
Yeah,
Scott,
Sula were here.
But we
And
do
he
need,
does come again.
yeah, we do need southern because they aren't full represented on the Old Valley.
Mhm.
But could
Oh, that's
we,
right.
like, do you feel Scott, like, would it be good to just have Scott speak for all the volunteer fire departments? Or do you feel, we're talking this driving team, this short committee, should there be one from all the fire districts? I guess, because you know,
I think
How
you'd want
diverse.
one from all the fire districts. Because I don't think you'd want to go in and step on Rex's
and
toes.
speak for
Right.
everybody.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it's harder, it's a lot easier to communicate with the chiefs,
uh-huh,
district by district, and that way no one's surprised.
got it. Everybody's getting the
I mean,
information at the same time.
they're harder to surprise than the commissioners, but nonetheless.
Okay,
uh,
okay, so that's good to know. So all 13 fire districts.
Well,
Or at least the ones that want to.
Right, right,
I mean, obviously,
yes,
you can't make them.
no, you can,
So is Brad Moen, is he still fire warden
yes.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
I think
yes.
for a while,
for a while?
thought he was retired.
Oh.
I
I-
think he was trying to pass the mantle on, but it wasn't taken up by anybody, so.
He's trying to sell, he's trying to buy the house in Arizona.
Yeah.
When he gets that bought, then he'll.
Oh, okay. So the last time Brad was involved with it, on the other update,
On the 2009 one?
Yeah.
But not the 2006?
I think he was still fire warden then, I think.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's
It's a
hard
long
to
time
think
ago.
back that far, you know, but I think he was. But, yeah, I guess my question is, you know, the fire warden, he's kind of the overall overseer, isn't he, of the fire departments within the county? Is that true?
For some things, yeah.
Some things, yeah.
So.
And the
maybe
council
we
is
get
for other
Whoever's
things.
in that job, involved in this process, because
That would
they
be
pack a
smart.
little bit more weight.
Yeah.
maybe.
And he meets with the council, or city council.
Yeah.
It'd be good to have one that-
No, that's a good idea. And that way, when that person changes, then it's the position, it's an ex officio
Yeah,
membership, not
Yeah.
not an individual.
So we were just talking to, I think someone from the NCRS should also be involved in the core committee. Is that what you were saying earlier, or is that someone that we just pull in as needed? I mean, aren't
Yeah.
they a part of the actual? Yeah, aren't they a part of?
Not a federal land management partner though. And there's really a big difference between a service agency and a land management agency.
They deal a lot with private land.
Yeah, and that's their strength is the service to private landowners through the USDA.
So maybe further down, definitely on we gotta figure out names for these different groups. So like, there's committee, and then there's like the core team, as Emily was talking to us, like they define the core team as essentially the group, the advisory group that's working with them to update the CWPP. And so that to me would be the NRCS, kind of making sure NRCS is there, realtors, builders, kind of the stakeholders, the broad range of stakeholders. But that is different than the driving committee, which is what we're talking about. But we have, like, I guess we need to just solidify also the name for it. The committee is the driving committee, and maybe the core team is that broader group that once the CWPP process is going, that is utilized to guide it. Does that sound?
I'm a little confused.
I know, that's the problem. So we need a committee right now to lay the foundation for this to happen. Right? Because without anybody driving it, is anything going to happen? No. There is funding waiting. There is funding that's going to be there, but it also requires that whoever receives it needs to be ready to go. They need to be ready to initialize this CWPP process, and they need to have local buy-in. So it needs to be locally driven, and they need to make sure that the local government is on board and is excited or wants the process. And so we need a committee to ensure that this is going to happen if we want this CWPP to occur.
When is funding going to be available?
I hope by the beginning of next year, by 2022, because they're ideally want to start giving money out in 2022. The state has to fulfill a few obligations on the data. So they have to be able to provide the data to counties in a certain manner. I don't know exactly that
But
process.
it's 2022.
Yes, but that's what they're doing right now, and that's why there's still some vagueness over how it's going to be, because they have to fulfill that part of the grant in order to then move to the next stage, which is actually giving out the money. And the goal is to have it start.
Okay, now this isn't the grant that has to have the 50-50 match.
No, this is this is not. That was a different one. That was one for just us trying to find a coordinator or something. This is a grant that the state received totally to help counties do CWPP updates in Montana. And so
then the money's gonna go to the counties. So then we have to have people from the county commissioners.
Well, we have to have
on
that
board and
support,
doing
right?
this, or
No, we have to show we have that support, and yes.
if it goes through the county coffers to go to your contractor, you have got to have county.
Well, it might not go to the county coffers. It may go to an organization.
Oh, direct?
Yeah,
From the
as
state?
long as it could, if we got fiscal sponsorship through them. But here's the thing, no matter what, this is not gonna fly if we don't have commissioner support. Like we just know that. That is also what they're meaning by county support. They want something that's locally driven and that is desired. And having commissioner support, I'm sure, is will be huge to that. And so that's where we come in, is to get this process going. We have to check off some of these boxes, right? We've got to have our ducks in a row. We've got to secure that buy-in from commissioners. We need to make sure that there's dialogue going back and forth so that we don't end up with a WUI map that won't be signed. Like, we want to ensure, and the whole process should be reflective of the county and the commissioners and you know, so.
It does seem like one of the things, like you said, one of the things that needs to be decided on before you even get the money is who is going to get the money.
Yeah.
Okay, and how is that going to be financially sound
Disseminated or,
in
you know,
terms of where that money goes?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So is it gonna be the county? Is it gonna be RCMD? Is it gonna be the NRC? Who's it gonna be?
Right.
Who makes that decision?
Yeah, we need to figure that out first, because then whoever hires the contractor has to be the person that's getting the money. And
Yeah.
depending upon
Well-
which one of those entities, Bridget or Kristen, depends upon which laws you have to follow to hire that contractor. Because if it's the county, they've got to have the 3 bids and all that good stuff.
So it may not be
so-
us that hires the contractor.
That's right, and it might not be anybody in this
No,
room
no,
that
no, I'm
does,
saying the state may utilize one contractor.
for all of it.
For
Okay.
all of them, and that is
Okay,
likely
that would
how
make-
it's going to be,
that
and
makes sense.
Emily,
That makes
right,
sense.
and so, like Emily, who talked to us last month, could be in the running, and she could be doing it for
Right.
multiple
That's
counties.
the SWA group.
Yes, SWCA, yes, and so that's probably how it's gonna wash out. One thing is, I would hesitate at just sitting here waiting to find the funding issues out, because we will lose out on the funding. Or we will be put at the back of the line. Right now, because of our risk, we are probably towards the top. But we have to have our ducks in a row. And that means that when that money comes available, we're ready. We've got a committee that's driving it. We've got a team lead. We've got a core team already identified for when the process starts going. And we have got support from the commissioners. On our core team, we have blank, 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 blank. And we are showing that it is a collaborative process, because that is required from the CWPP. And they need to be, it has to be broad collaboration, and it should be. So we have all of that covered. With our risk, we could be the first ones to receive those funds in 2022, and we get to hit the ground and go. So
So just a quick question. So in order to vie for the grant, you mentioned that the DNRC has to fulfill certain obligations.
yes,
Okay, so who is doing that?
so it's the Fire Protection Bureau.
Okay,
They, and I believe it's data from the Montana Wildfire Risk Assessment that they have to make available all of that data at the county level, so that the counties in the contractors or contractor can utilize that for the WUI map, the risk assessment, all of that. Because there is no need to recreate or for a contractor to do all this analysis if it's already been done. And it's done in conjunction with the forest action plan. So it automatically pulls that information. So I don't know exactly what has to be done, but I know that's the gist of it.
so in terms of the funding, then does all of the funding go to the contractor to do the work? And then our committee is basically volunteer, just feed them information.
It's
Is
so.
that how that works?
They haven't solidified that yet. They're working on it. But it sounds like, so they have 250,000 that's going to go to counties. And initially they were dividing it up just in equal chunks. And then as they really analyze it, they're like, wait a minute, you know, Yellowstone County CWPP is going to take a heck of a lot more resources and time than Granite County, right? And so they are leaning towards doing like an RFP where we actually apply for that funding and request up to, maybe they set a cap. So they may say you may request up to $25,000 or $30,000. And so we request that, or they secure the contractor and provide that for us. And then maybe, you know, the resources that the contractor will do, and maybe ancillary costs that we might need to help the contractor. I'm not sure, but like it isn't, that hasn't been solidified yet, because they're trying to figure out how to make it as fair as possible, but as appropriate as possible, I guess, if that makes sense. And so we don't know, and we're not probably going to know until I would say at least fire season is shaken out and tied up a little bit. So I'm thinking,
This fire season.
yes. this
So
fire
the
season.
beginning of next year.
Yeah, I'm hoping December, January, we should have more answers, because just right now,
There's a lot of unknowns right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of moving parts.
yeah. But what I'm trying to say is the knowns that we do know, we can do something about. And it has to be done anyways, if we are going to do a CWPP. And that was part of the discussion too, is even if this funding isn't here, is this something we want to pursue and then search for funding to do as well? Like, you know, if the funding goes away, if we don't receive the RFP, or, you know, that money just disappears somehow, or we don't have our ducks in a row in enough time. Is this still something we want to pursue? Do we have a plan B for doing the CWPP?
Was there a list of the kinds of ducks we need to put in a row?
Yeah.
Because there's a huge difference between getting together a core group to advise a contractor
Mhm.
that is being administered by
Right.
NRC, as opposed to getting together a core group
That's
to
driving
either
the whole
do it
process.
or look for grant funds to do it, or think about doing it, or, you know, that's
Right.
those are really different.
They are. So we operate under Plan A because the funds are there and we know something's gonna happen. I cannot guarantee it though. So we
Well,
also
no.
have a Plan B. That's my suggestion, but I am not the ruler here too. I mean, we also have to want the CWPP update no matter what, because it's not an easy process. But it is critical. I will say it's critical.
It truly should be what's guiding
Yes,
everything that we do here.
right.
So do I understand that the maximum amount of grant money that will be available, assuming it's available the first of the year, is $250,000?
For all of the counties.
For the
There's
whole-
58
For the
counties right
state.
now that have
58
CWPP.
Yeah, but they all don't need updates.
No.
So it's only, they initially identified 11 counties
11
that
that have,
needed
okay.
updates. And actually, I know that one of those just completed an update.
Okay.
Not a very good one, but they just completed one.
So
So,
down to 10.
yeah, so yeah,
Well,
and
I think, you know, in order to develop a plan A and plan B, I think we need to take a look at what our chances of success might be, assuming we get our unnamed ducks in a row in time. What would be the maximum amount that would be allocated for us? Either to hire our own contractor or to have have that money dedicated to, if they're doing a single contractor for all counties. It seems to me that this is a project that a contractor, if he's doing it for one count, just apportioning $250,000 to a single county, and he's spreading that over 10 or 15 counties, that's not really going to get us very far. Even if we get, $25,000, which is 10% of it, that doesn't go very far.
Right. And that's
Um,
Emily had told us that it was about $40,000, right? And so there is a good chance we still will need to come up with funding, but we might not if they negotiate with the contractor to just do all of those counties for $250,000. You see what I'm saying? It may be a package deal, which is why they're thinking of having one contractor. Which that makes sense to me, because one, you're getting good quality for all of those counties, but two, you get a negotiated price. And they could do all of what's required for the update for all of those counties for that lump sum. So, and I wish I could give more answers.
But then you
I
have
don't
a contractor that's got 15 different.
No, not at
Right.
once. They're in stages. So that's it too. And that's why we want to have our ducks in a row.
They're in
Because
stages,
yes, 3-year stages. So there's
Also-
certain amount of funds that are going to be released in 2022, certain amount in 23, certain amount in 24. So if we don't have
Out
our
of
ducks
the-
in the row,
out
we're
of that-
down.
Out of
Yeah.
that 1,250.
Yeah, out
Oh,
of that
so,
250.
oh,
So that's why. And right now, we're like at the front of the line.
So if you were betting,
Right.
if you were betting person,
Plan A, Plan B,
what
you
are
still
our
need
odds?
commissioners.
100%.
Which, yeah.
Yeah, no, 99.9% because
Yeah.
we are there. We are there. They want to help us. Like this is a grant that they went to bat for us. They
So
don't
what's
want
what's
to
our
hold
biggest
the money.
hurdle to ensure that we're ready to go? And we've got-
Commissioner support,
Which
local.
is regardless
county
if we're gonna
support.
do Plan A or Plan B, that's the one thing we need is commissioner support.
So-
So that's what our
Which-
focus should be.
We did, when Kristen presented to the commissioners, the community wildfire protection plan update was a part of
We
the
mentioned
original
it,
grant.
right.
So they already have been introduced to the Fire and the Root Council. They've already approved that, and as well as all the tentative ideas we had in the original grant.
Yeah.
So
It's there.
in my mind, what we need, we've got the committee fairly well fleshed out. So what we need is identify the components of the core team, the
Well,
representatives of the core team. Is it
yes,
federal, state, county, and then some private? Does that constitute all the elements we need?
yes. And actually,
So,
we could skip doing the core team tonight because the critical items were to solidify the driving committee, right? Who's getting the ducks in the row? So solidify that committee and then reaching out to commissioners, that bottom line. How, who, when, and why? How are we going to get support? And if we have support, because honestly, if they are not on board, it's not gonna fly. And so that's
My
critical.
question is gonna go back 2009 with the WUI map. You said the public was against as far as that, you're not telling me what to do up my own land.
Well,
But
some of
was
the
it-
public,
But was it the commissioners who shot down the WUI map or?
yes, the commission shot it down. We went through an election. And there was a change in quite a few commissioners at that time.
And we're down to 3 now.
Yeah, we're down to 3 now. But the bottom line in 2009 was private landowners got the ear of the commissioners, and the commissioners were of the mindset that, yeah, you're right, we don't want it. And the DNRC came in and basically said, we will support the 2006 WUI map, which there really wasn't a WUI map. It was a high priority map. That's how it was.
We've got a kind of, like I said, changing the commissioners now.
Right.
One of them actually is a member of Hamilton Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he also has his own company.
Right.
Personally, I think they're all in support of.
I think so too. Yeah.
Our demographics have changed over the past 2 years with people that are coming into the valley.
Yeah.
That have gone through some of these major fires in other areas of the United States. So we may have a little better, it looks to me like we need that WUI map. And we're gonna have to get the support from planning as well as the builders, because I can guarantee you, we got another, I got a member on their board of directors that her husband's a builder and a contractor, and she is against any WUI,
Mhm.
which doesn't
For
help.
insurance
The
reasons,
designation. of
for
right.
insurance reasons.
Yeah, she's at any WUI regulations because they're gonna increase building costs.
Oh, but those are codes. So that's not, like,
And
that's a little different. But
and
see, some
Ravalli
people
County
see.
has no building codes.
Right, and they
That's where
feel
we
if
need
you
planning
designate
involved.
it WUI, then you can code, then you can do a WUI code. Then you can enforce things, and so that's part of the reticence, I think, too, is that any designation then opens the door for regulation. But I do
But
think,
it needs it. I've seen places.
Yeah.
Up Roaring Line.
and it
I
might
helped
come
some
out
people
in the
sell their house up there that
CWPP.
survived the fire and they went through there.
Yeah,
All their neighbors' houses burned down and there stood.
but what's great is a CWPP sometimes brings that to light, and you often find that there is public support, or there isn't, like the CWPP process can bring that out too, and there may be actual support for codes, I mean, like, we may find that.
That's why I
Um,
think the public
Right.
making sure we're really good about public meetings.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta convince
And
the
having residents.
And examples on where
Yeah.
this mitigation worked.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Because the 2016 fire up there, Roaring Line is still pretty fresh in people's minds.
Even new people coming in have heard about that.
Mhm.
But our number one commissioner that voted no, 2009,
Is he still there?
still on the ballot.
Chilcott.
yeah.
well,
Well, he's up for election this coming year.
You
Well,
gonna
we
run,
can-
Lori?
Huh?
You gonna run?
No, I'm not ready for good.
Thank you very much.
come on, Marlene.
So the RFP,
Mhm.
so who would be putting that together? Are you thinking of our
I-
committee, our committee here, putting the RFP together?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be something. the committee
RFP
does.
means what?
Yes,
Request for proposal.
yeah, so that's, if there's a grant, they have an application process. And that's what it's called, is an RFP. They're requesting you to propose what you're gonna do with those funds. Yeah. So, but it would not be a FEMA RFP. It would be, because you have to think they wanna give us the money.
Thank you, Lord.
Yeah, it's not gonna be that. They wanna give us the money. All they really want to know is that we're ready to receive it and how to prioritize giving out the funds. So that's why I'm saying we're already at the top of the list because of our risk here in Ravalli County. And our really way outdated CWPP. A CWPP should actually be updated every few years, maybe every 5 days, every 5 years at the most. Ours is way out of date. And so they want to give us the money, but they don't want to just give money if we're not ready, if we don't have commissioner support, if we don't have a group that's ready to take on driving the process. That's all we have to prove.
So that's the only duck we have? Really?
Well, I think those are big ducks, but yeah, I mean, it's not,
Okay.
that's
We
why
can do
it's like,
that.
we just,
Yeah.
we
Need to
just
have a
gotta,
committee of worker bees that are willing to talk to the commission.
yes,
Yeah.
and figure out
I've
how
already
and what
talked
to
to
say.
Greg Chilcott, and he said,
Chilcott.
yeah, he supports redoing the CWPP.
Then let's go for it,
Yeah,
because he's the only one that would.
Yeah.
well,
I was
already
gonna say,
talked to him,
that's
so.
where
Yeah.
you guys work, I've sat in front of them and done a presentation. That's pretty much it. And I worked with Commissioner Halls a little bit. So it's like, that's
That's for
where,
fire and the root, right?
yeah,
Not CWPP.
no, no. And so that's where your experience, all of yours should guide this
Probably tired of
conversation.
hearing it from me.
But you are also a trusted voice. And so maybe that is the route to go.
So what do you need from them? So that we
Support.
can proceed.
Just a letter?
I
Just a
would
letter?
say probably a letter of support
Okay.
in initiating an updated CWPP, but a letter of support for an update to the CWPP.
So you're gonna have, the committee's gonna have to get on their agenda,
Yeah,
make it probably a good presentation. Maybe decide how in-depth that would be
right.
and get them to.
So a letter of support to. I was just looking to see when Lewis and Clark counties, so I was trying to think other counties in Montana, they're probably ahead of us by now after this summer, but theirs was 2015 when they updated theirs.
Okay.
Missoula did theirs recently, theirs is like a 2018 or 19.
It is,
update.
it's
Yeah,
18,
they're-
yeah.
Thinking
We
Valley
are-
County's pretty high on the
So we
list.
gotta be high on the list and we're probably.
We are at the top of the list, I'm telling you.
I believe that. I believe that.
We just have to be ready. That's what I'm telling you.
Okay, we can get a letter from the county commissioners. That would be good.
So that's, yeah.
No, I can't volunteer for the team leader position. I just don't have time with some of the other involvements I've got. But I just took on potentially took on a state realtor committee position too.
Okay, so out of respect of people's times, it is 8:32. Well, I think, next steps would we say, I think, okay, meeting times, capacity, our ability to actually accomplish, yes, more items, with our number of people right now. Should we keep the CWPP update committee just to the versus making another meeting? Just kind of keep it all to these meetings, because we'll do, keep doing our little outreach and education stuff that we have been doing, and we'll give updates on that. And if funding comes up or available, we'll bring that up. But moving forward, just focusing this group on the community wildfire protection plan update. So one meeting instead of 2 meetings.
I think we can do that for a while, but there's gonna have to be a point where that core team
Yeah.
starts working.
Yeah.
And it won't work to do it this way anymore,
Yes, yes.
but maybe the next 1 or 2.
Okay. Awesome.
And then we'll see after the first of the year.
Yeah, hopefully after the next couple months, we will have a lot more information.
And then there's a bunch of contract structure questions. Because obviously DNRC administers the contract. But we need technical representation in that contract if we're gonna get what we need out of it.
Right. Okay.
So we might be able to do this as one meeting till January,
Yeah, that makes sense, definitely.
and then we'll see how it shakes out.
Okay.
May I also make another suggestion, whoever goes to county commissioners, I think it's really important that you go. And the
I was
reason-
just thinking I might just quit everything.
No, the reason I think it's really important that you're there, because I think it's really, really important that the county commissioners hear about the education things that you have been doing
for the public,
Yeah.
because that to them is what's most important.
I agree.
And that
They
you are
can care
the
less
public.
about our monthly meetings,
Yeah.
but they're gonna like the fact that you're going to the Apple Days. They're gonna like the fact that you were at the fairgrounds, that you were handing out brochures, that you're helping people. Because that to them is what's going to be important.
Yep.
Really important.
And that you care about this process, like
Yep.
the.
Oh,
the
I do,
residents.
but I'm a little worried about hearing about the public not liking the
That's-
WUI map, and we're gonna get to the same place again and maybe have the same problem. I can't represent the public. I'm one person.
No, but
No.
you can represent what you've been doing to bring education forward.
Right, yeah.
And that's gonna be
Yeah,
important.
that's
And that's
easy.
important for them to hear.
And what's gonna happen is the same thing that happened, there are septic regulations update. You're gonna have a handful of the public come in and spout off, and then a lot of them just, what do you mean that was updated?
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, and we've advertised, I mean, we put out money to work on education, we're still doing education, so it's. You got a small number of the public that put out most of the outcry that gets the commissioner's ears.
That's what happened last time.
So
That's what
here's
always
the
happens.
thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way it was.
We'll get scored.
but if we,
Do nothing.
right,
Then it's
and
easier for
also
that
there
small
are
group.
ways of hearing the quiet voice, right? Social assessment. That if you watched my spotlight video on WIRE or Wildfire Research Center, and those the rapid assessment process that also had social assessment, well, you can ask questions that will tell us what the public is thinking. And that's how you access those silent voices. And you have data that says, you may be hearing this, but 70% of respondents in these 5 communities are really worried, and they want this, and they want this, and they want this. So there are ways we can do it. And so that's also where, like the next meeting, if there's time, we can talk about doing a project like WIRE that can support the CWPP process, but gives us beneficial information just in itself, and also really opens the door for mitigation. But it will help us to know where the public stands. And that's like the CWPP really needs to embrace that and identify issues we may not know. The squeaky wheels tell us their issues, but there's a lot of issues out there we may have no clue about. And social assessment like that will help us. So like there are things that we can do, and that's possible. Like it's realistic. So, there are ways we can actually hear, and Judy, you won't be the only one representing all of the.
I
public.
hope
So,
Yeah.
I
No,
promise.
but just talking about the things that you've been doing,
Yeah,
you're not representing the public because most of the public isn't doing all those things. Just the educational things that you're doing are so valuable, and they need to know about it.
Yeah, they just need to know that what you're doing, so that they know that you're trying, and
Yeah.
that the attempt is being made. So,
You're
and
also-
I really think they'll give a letter of support as long as we don't commit them the money.
yes.
So they're really good about letters of support if you don't give them anything.
And depending which branch it comes out of, they might have some money they'll give too. They did match our grant for the education with the septic.
Yeah. Well, and
Out of
that's
their
like,
fines.
we might want to make this what we address at the next meeting. And because I think we do need to talk about it a little bit more, because we may want to leave the door open to request supplemental support if necessary. And it doesn't necessarily have to be money from the county, but it could be participation.
GIS
Or,
support.
yes, like, I don't wanna, like, we just need to make sure we're not closing doors and that they come back to us and say, well, you told us you're not gonna ask for any money. So that we don't have that happen, or, you know what I mean? That's where we need to think it through. And that's where you guys really have more experience than I do on this. Than we do, so it's, you need to utilize it.
So in requesting a letter, sending to the commissioner, might be a good idea to have somebody there from, number one, sheriff department, fire department, next fourth,
Yeah,
all of them
kind of that
saying
core
how
community.
important it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To accomplish what we need to accomplish to protect lives and property.
Yeah.
That's what the CWBD does. So I think it's really critical to have a few more folks there that get duty.
Yeah, come
No, not-
on.
yeah.
And we would never put Jesse Judy there. It's important that Judy's there.
Right. And the leader of this committee, this core group, probably should not be a current county employee. That's just,
Yeah.
that's not a good spot to be in, to talk to the commissioners. You know, it's just not a good deal.